To 52 Weeks with 52 Authors. And today I am joined by Jay Winslow. Hi there.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm really good. I'm having a great day. I hope you are too.
Well, it's snowing in Chicago as usual, but what can we do about it? It is what it is.
That's why they call it winter.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about a chapter in a book that you had the honor of being a part of. A type of book, a compilation book, as you've described it, something that I was not familiar with, which is Ignite the Entrepreneur. And your particular subject area was about entrepreneurship and faith. And having personally been an entrepreneur since 2002, I know that I've had to take faith on the journey. And sometimes I lost sight of that. And when I lost sight of that, I found myself losing my way. So first, tell our audience how you even got involved with the compilation book. As a reader, I learned something new just by corresponding with you about a compilation book because I'd never read a compilation book.
So actually we're kind of overlapping and compressing two books. So one is Ignite the Entrepreneur, which was, I think, 33 authors that all wrote about their Ignite moment. It's from a company called Ignite Publishing. And everyone was tasked with writing about their Ignite moment that had them go on this, that was pivotal in their entrepreneurial journey. Now, as we know, we all have more than one moment that impacts our path, but this is to choose one. The other book is called Ignite Your Faith, which was a fascinating journey for me because I thought I was going to be writing about something that I didn't really believe in, and it turned out very differently, which I will share in a moment. But the thing that I think is so fascinating, this publisher, Ignite Publishing, first of all, the books are beautiful. Here's the cover of one, but you can't see, but they have deep bossing and they're partially varnished, and she does all this cool stuff. She's put out over 20 international best-selling books, and there are people from all over the world that contribute, and each person goes through a whole process. She has editors. It's a whole thing, and the books are actually quite awesome, because sometimes when you do something like this, you're not really sure. And especially for me, when I wrote in the faith book, because full disclosure, I will be honest and transparent, as they say, I'm not a big God person. I am a big angel person, which I recently decided is really the same thing, because we're talking about invisible entities that we have chosen to believe in. I believe in angels. Anyway, so I thought it would be very matter-of-factly perspective from this God space, and it isn't. And the stories are incredible. And because I was in all these writing sessions and sessions with people, I come to know them, and then I read their story, and they're like mind-boggling, really. Mine ended up being about, and it came in, the piece about entrepreneurship came in sort of at the end, where after I had this epiphany of my own regarding faith, I also realized, wow, how much faith does it take, as you said, to be an entrepreneur. Holy guacamole, a lot. All day, every day, really. And yeah, that could have been its whole other chapter, but that's not where I ended up going. Yeah.
Wow. So I'll let you in on a fun fact. In my book, Grow With Me, chapter 12 is titled Faith Over Fear.
Look at you.
And one of the things that I am really embracing from my conversations with 52 other authors is that I'm being healed through this journey because number one, I'm learning I'm not alone in my walk, and I'm learning that it's okay to not be okay. But if you have faith, you can make it to the other side. And some people will say faith. I'm not really a religious person. And to me, it's just about you believing that you can achieve the thing that you set out to do.
Well, that's really perfect because what I discovered, same but different, is that, and I had no idea what the heck I was signing up for. Some of us, myself, are people that I follow what I'm guided to do. I don't often know, like sometimes I raise my hand for things and I think, who are you and what are you thinking? And this was one of those occasions where I said to the publisher, I don't know if you really want me in this book because I'm going to call BS on the whole concept. And after I did that and I just sat with, okay, well, that's great. Now, smarty pants, where are you going with that? I got this sort of download that faith was an acronym. Okay, great. Faith is an acronym. So what does that stand for? Missy? And I kept coming up with all this stuff, but none of it really made sense. It didn't land like, okay, this is worth exploring and this is worth sharing. I wrote the chapter. I was sort of writing and playing and doing the thing and meeting with the editors or, all the things. And then I'm someone who goes to Burning Man, which is this big event. And it's very like love-based. It's a lot of people gathering for creativity and love. It's a pop-up city. And I was riding my bike around the city and I realized, oh my gosh, this is faith embodied, because faith, to me, this is what it ended up standing for in that moment. Faith, F, is a frequency, right? We're all energy. It's vibration. So who are you being? Well, in faith, you are taking on a different frequency from your day-to-day doubter self, unconscious self, like whatever you want to call it, right? The person that you normally are going through life. But when you're in faith, you have a frequency that is altered in the heart. That's what it stands for. Frequency altered in the heart. And when you tap into that, and when you think about it, why do people go to church or synagogue or anywhere that they gather? It's to be just like a Burning Man event or a festival or a choir or a concert or a ballet, right? We're in this frequency of this group that appreciates in a particular way. We have the same beliefs. We share values. We share commonalities. And we are therefore affecting the frequency. And I was just like, whoa. And that's what I ended up writing about.
I love it. So I will tell you, I have the Amazon version of the book, the Kindle version of the book, because since I'm doing 52 authors, 52, weeks, in addition to my regular reading, I went directly to your chapter. And the first thing that I saw that hit me like a ton of bricks, and I hope that our listening viewing audience purchase a copy. The first sentence that my eyes looked at, you have everything you need. And as a person who grew up in the church, you talk about folks that gather on a weekly basis. Sometimes when I was younger, it was twice a week. They gather because they all have the same thing in common. But I'm going to disrupt some folks here with this statement. Some people in that setting, they go there religiously week after week, but they never experience this growth that they're destined to achieve because they haven't realized that they have what they need. They don't allow it to be unleashed. And that's scary because in my particular religion, people do it because that's how they were raised to do it, right? But it's not having an impact on their life. I know some people who they have this really strong faith, but they've been saying for 25 and 30 years that they want to get a house. Well, if your faith is that big, where's this house that you believe that the higher power is going to allow you to get, but you're not putting in the work? And so a lot of times people are allowing this fear to hold them back, which is why when I sat down at my computer and wrote Faith Over Fear, it set me free from something that was holding me back. And it was specifically related to my first company that I was holding on to that was draining me financially. And I decided it was time to close it. So October 2023, I closed the doors.
Mm-hmm.
The burden, the weight that was lifted off of me was like instant. I didn't cry about it. Once I made the decision, I was set free. So tell me a little bit about
It's beautiful.
how you've changed after writing this chapter.
Well, you just said something I think that's super important that I have been aware of and living into that was life-changing for me. And that is that what I heard you say is unless we are willing to co-create with faith, with the energy, with spirit, with whatever you want to call it, right? But we actively participate, sitting in a church pew, sitting on your bed, laying on the beach, wondering, that doesn't really get it done. That's not the frequency that you and I are talking about. So for me, I guess I'm going to just read this because the chapters all start with, and I love this, but the chapters all start with an intention. Like, what is your intention for the reader to get? So this is what I wrote in my faith book. My deep desire for you is for you to understand your own power, that your thoughts are things as alive as anything you can imagine. So that's the first sentence. So I'm a really big Wallace Wattles fan who wrote The Science of Getting Rich. And it's really what he speaks about is that we know this, right? There is a field, there is a thinking, there is a substance. When we have an idea, when we have a dream, it's like a seed planted in the field so that it can be nurtured. We have to do that. It's like when they talk about you can't just grow an oak tree from a seed. It doesn't just happen. I just was listening to Bob Proctor about this. All the elements are contained within the seed, but the seed needs to be nourished. It needs to be fertilized. It needs to be watered. It needs to be in soil. You can't put it on your desktop and think it's going to grow a big oak tree. It doesn't work that way. The same is true for us. Just because you have this idea and this dream and this vision, okay, now how with faith, with that how will you take a new frequency and step into that? So to me, that's it, and we're all students.
Right. Yes, you have to be. I like to say that I'm learning faster than I'm growing so that when I get to the place,
that's good.
I've planted all the seeds in the ground. And when I get there, I'm ready. And you're ready because it's effortless, right? Because you've done all the things that you needed to do.
Yeah.
And once I started executing this faith over fear, I'm starting to have these visions of things that will happen. And I see myself in the visions walking towards the place where I'm at, but I'm also reminded of all of the seeds that I've sown. I'm reminded of the days where I'm in the bathtub crying about, this or that. And so that frequency that you keep talking about, it's electric.
And it's also, I love that we just said, so my first book, which is a different book, which I wrote a number of years ago, it's about branding and marketing, which is what I do. And I talk about it being like a garden, because you can have an English garden that's all like overgrown and crazy and wild, or you can have a very well manicured space, or right, there's all these different options, right? We get to create that. And so often, I remember one time I live in Florida, and I'm really good at killing things, growing things, I should say, not humans, but things. And but down here it's a lot harder, which thank God. And I was out watering like this little pot I had, which I had some seeds in, and I kept watering this and I would look and nothing's happening, and I would look and nothing. And I thought, it's so fascinating that I'm willing to be patient-ish, and water this little puppy, intending it to grow, not knowing if it will. And here we are, like it seems way past when it should be sprouting. And yet I'm still like, okay, little guy, are you coming? Are you coming? And yet we don't do that with our own dreams. At a point, we stop watering. And I'm guilty of it too. It's funny because my word for this year is trust. And because I noticed that, yes, just like many of us do, I will stop watering my dreams. when I do. How's that
Mm.
working for you?
You know
Yeah.
what? I love that you mentioned that because I realize about myself, I continue to water and cultivate the things that I want to do, primarily because I believe in me. But the other thing is, I have witnessed the impossible things happen when people say that they wouldn't happen. My daughter, who will be 32 this year, is special needs. And when she was born, we were told that she wasn't going to walk. And after 7 years, she started walking. But you know why she started walking? Because me, once I realized that I needed to get her some external support in her growth journey, that's when she just started to grow. But I had to be willing to take that first step, but then
Mm.
continue to advocate for her on the journey. And while advocating for her, it made me stronger and realize that if you keep fighting, you can get to the things that you want. And unlike what you see on the internet, it's not going to happen overnight, not instant things, not a microwave. You have to keep putting in
Yeah.
the work. And if it's something that you really believe in, it will happen.
But you actually just said something else really important, which is I think we also need support. So when our faith weakens, how do we borrow? How do we get supported? How do we continue to grow? Because I don't know that I have such a strong belief in myself all the time. Many days I don't. I'm an introvert. I spend a lot of time alone. And sometimes your head is a really bad neighborhood to hang out in. And, what would have happened with your daughter if she didn't have you to be an advocate, to be a support, to hold the vision, to stand beside her? Like, those are critical elements for success in anything.
And you know what I learned over time? It was resilience, which is I have been told based on reading and learning and all of that. It's not something that you're born with. It's something that you develop by staying in the fight. And it's like a muscle that you have to keep exercising.
Everything is. So I was a suicidal, this takes us totally somewhere else, but just FYI, I was a suicidal kid. And my life changed when I got involved in personal development, which happened not long before I turned 30. So I've been immersed. It changed my life. And I have been radically immersed in personal development ever since. And what I've learned is that happiness, resilience, fortitude, faith, it's all a practice. It's all a skill set. And we live in this society that thinks like just instantly, let me go get some happy at the 7-Eleven down the street. No. It doesn't work that way. And when I finally came to the other side of this depression's journey, I realized, holy cow, this is a habit. Like, what are habits? What are beliefs? They're just things that you just think over and over. Like you said, people in church, they just sit, they go because that's what we've always done. My family goes to church, so I go to church. That's not a good enough reason. That doesn't allow any of it to come into your psyche, to move into your cells, to change your heart, to alter your frequency. Like, none of that is available to you if you're just a bump on a log going to church because that's what we do. And then when I first moved to Florida, I was a waitress. I don't do church and religion stuff, so I don't know any of this stuff. But I worked at this restaurant. We had brunch. And at noon on Sunday, because that's when you're allowed to start drinking in Florida, how crazy, there would be a line like 2 blocks long. People would literally come from church to the bar. What? Like, and you think you're going to live a fantastic life when this is your habit. And so for me to become happy, oh my gosh, I'm still in the process, right? 30 years later, but wow, did that take something to unwind? But just that desire. And I guess at the time, which I did not identify, faith and support, it kept moving me towards this other way of being, creating new neural pathways, creating new options, yeah, it's fascinating. And that's what we have to do, right? That's what your daughter ended up doing, I'm sure. She had to
Absolutely.
rewire her system.
And even though today she doesn't talk, she can't hear, she is able to get her needs met because, 32 years later of being her, she's very clear on what she wants to do, what she doesn't want to do. And I love it. And sometimes I look at her and I'm like, oh, she's a little me. I mean, I look at how she communicates, but a couple of things. Number one, I really want to thank you for being authentic, transparent. That's my number one driving force for doing 52 authors, 52 weeks. There is someone that's probably listening to this that will say, I suffered from depression as well. People think they're embarrassed to admit what they've been through. And I tell everybody, we don't look like what we've been through
Yeah.
at all, at all.
Yeah. Wow, that's so true. You know, when I first got certified, and I didn't get certified, when I graduated coaching school 20 something years ago, I said to somebody, you know, I really want to work with kids and I want people to know that there's these options, because I used to be suicidal. And they said, oh, you can't ever tell anyone that. And I said, what are you talking about? Why wouldn't I speak that? They said, oh, nobody will ever trust you or work with you if they know that you were like suicidal. What do I know? I believed that, because that's what we do. We believe people who are, we think, above us, right? And after a few years, I thought, this is such crap. Like, people need to know. And people, and I talk about this all that. So I'm really into leadership, and that's kind of what I do in life with brands and businesses and leaders. I think we are living in a time where we've been so lied to and we have not questioned these edicts, and it's time for something else. And I recently worked with a young person, I think he's like 14 or 15, and I didn't know if he could wrap his head around this. And he was very depressed. That's why his mom wanted me to talk to him. And I said, you know, there are choices. Like, we choose how to feel. And he was like, what are you talking about? I said, well, what do you think a habit is? And I said, a habit is just a belief that we keep saying to ourselves over and over. But if you decide, like, how would you like to feel? And what if you said that to yourself over and over? What would be possible? And I knew he was chewing on it. He just found that to be like the most outlandish claim. But I'm so glad that I got to plant that seed in his heart for him to chew on.
You know what? You said something that just really hit me. It's time to take the mask off and be our true, authentic self. Last year was the first time that I disclosed that, probably about 2 years after giving birth to my daughter, that I tried to take my life. And I wrote it in the book. And now, you know, that set me free to verbalize it. So many people have said to me, thank you for being authentic, because I would have never known that you tried to do that. And that's because people send their representative when they're interacting in and around their communities. And that's not what people need. People need us to show up as our authentic selves, being transparent, being vulnerable, because that's how you help others.
Yeah.
And we all need a community. And if your
It's-
community is all at the same place that you're at, that's the wrong community, because you're not going to grow. You're always going to be going around in a circle, staying where you are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very strange sort of system that we've created.
Small,
And
what's it called? Group think? Is it group think mentality?
well, also, you know, and this is not, in a way, this isn't fair for me to even speak, because I am not a parent. I have fur children and I have opinions about parenting. But one of the things that I've noticed is that, you know, we women are the ones raising children. And we've made it so that because we're all supposed to be bright and shiny, and, you know, you look at, even if you just look at like sort of post World War II on, you know, where women were supposed to be just like this perfect little Susie homemaker in their little apron and their cinched waist, and like, it's just such craziness. But all of that was created falsely. And when people see me now I'm all like, woohoo, life, yippee. So they think I popped out like that, and I probably did. And then, you know, when I was about 10 or 11 is when I just went whee down. And I wonder if part of it is chemical. I mean, there's all these elements, right, that contribute to who we be. But we abdicate our power. And that's gotten to be at a fever pitch, because people want the government to save them, and they want this to take care of them, and they want more of that. And that's desired by those icky old white guys in power. Like, like, when is it time for us to step up and step in and just do that within our own little world, in our own little community, in your own little pod, in your own little, you know, whatever, group, book club, church, where's support?
I think people are afraid.
And it's time. Like, we have to really raise our hand, use our voice. There's so much research now. You know, we used to all talk about, everybody was a woo-woo. No, it's now, we call it quantum physics. It's science. There is an energy. There is a field. We are actually manipulating it and imprinting upon it and affecting it all the time. We do it with our thinking. You know, where did they come up with thinking made it so, makes it so? You know, you think about these colloquialisms, they come from something. They
Mhm.
actually come from truths, and we dismiss them like they're nothing.
Wow. I have really enjoyed this conversation. Now, you mentioned that you've written several books, and I've only, looked at the one. So tell us all of the names of, not even if you don't have the full list, what are some of the books you've written? Because you're a brandologist, right? And it took me 40, I'm 50, so it took me, no, I'm 25. It took me 45 years to realize that I was a brand. I was working with a marketing specialist, and she said, "You're not going to drive customers to your business by the name of your company. They're going to come because of you." And it took me 45 years to realize that I had built this brand and how powerful the brand is.
Mm,
And
mm.
once I realized it, I took it and ran with it. So tell us about the books that you've written.
I've only participated in 3 books. And so one is Ignite Your Faith, one is Ignite the Entrepreneur. And then a number of years ago, I wrote a book. It's called The Guide to Getting It, Business and Branding Mastery. And it's a teeny little skinny book, and it's all business coaches, I believe. And that's an old book, and I still give those away. I have a lot, I guess, a bunch of them. But that was back in the day where you had like a minimum order of, 4 million. So I still
Mm-hmm.
have 3 million in my garage. But yes, and I write a lot. I do a lot of blogging and writing. And I just had my first article placed in Market Insiders, which is part of
Oh,
business.
congratulations.
Yeah, which is like super like a dream come true that I am in that awesome
I love
publication.
it. And
Yeah.
you willed yourself there, right? That
You
frequency
know, I
keeps
have to also say,
going.
Lisa, before we close, that this is the thing. I've been in branding my entire career. Different aspects. I started out is on the visual side. And I remember back in the day, and I would talk about branding, and people would say, well, what do I need that for? That's like for Coca-Cola. And people don't understand that you are a brand.
Mm.
You've always been a brand. You've always been creating your brand, consciously or unconsciously, from what you wear to how you speak to where you go to all your friends but the cool thing about a brand when you have this conscious awareness is you get to decide and design and push and create this entity. It's sort of like when you're in a marriage and there's you, them, and the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
There's this other entity of your world and life that's called a brand. And we all do it. So whether you decide to do it consciously or you choose to stay unconscious, that doesn't make your brand any less present. So it is an important element. And it really kind of is I call it's our opportunity for full self-expression as an adult.
Oh, that's so powerful. My professional organization, probably about 3 years ago, published this brand kit, right? And everybody was like, what do we do with this? And I'm like, this is what you do with it, right? They gave you the roadmap, and they're like, but I'm not a brand. I work for such and such. No, you are, as an individual, a brand.
That's right. Yeah. I
And I
mean, think of every business leader. You think about Steve Jobs and how he infused his brand, fused his personality. Ross Perot back in the day when they were like, oh my God, Ross Perot, he took over, or the guy from General Motors or whatever, right? There, like we didn't have the language, we didn't have the awareness, we weren't connecting the dots. And maybe they didn't want us to. I don't know, but
knowledge is power, right? So since we didn't know, and that's why I just told my youngest daughter, you need to turn off that TV and you need to read. Because if you read, you will learn some things about this world that the world doesn't want you to know. My father said to me years ago, if you want people to not know something, put it in a book because they're not going to read it.
Oh my gosh,
Makes
no
sense.
kidding.
Makes sense, right?
Wow.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, I have enjoyed our conversation today. For our listening, viewing audience, you can find Jay Winslow's books like I did on Amazon, America's favorite shopping store, so they say. Are there any final words of wisdom? You've been dropping so many gems. I've learned a lot. I'm going to make sure my frequency is off the scale for 2024 and beyond, because there's so many things that the world needs to see me do. But are any final words that you want to share, maybe for someone who is thinking that they're not enough, they don't deserve what the world has to offer to them?
That's a great prompt, actually. I guess what I would share in that regard regard is that we are more powerful than we realize, right? As individuals, but there is nothing that beats the power of community. And you can use that to your detriment and hang with some bad people and bad things, but you always can make another choice. And I just encourage anybody who, reach out to me, reach out to someone. But if you're feeling like you're not enough, consider that it's a lie and that there might be another truth waiting for you. And if you'll just hang in there, it doesn't happen overnight, guys. But when you start looking for the gems instead of the poo, you have to lift your eyes to see something else. And what they say is what you focus on expands. And if you are looking for the joy and the gems, you see through a different lens. When you're looking for the poop, your mirror, your lenses are smeared and you can't see. There's a fog. And if you have to stop eating sugar or start walking or whatever you need to, turn on some great music that you love to change your frequency, do it.
That was powerful. I don't have anything else to say. Thank you all for tuning in. 52 weeks, 52 authors. I am here with Jay Winslow. I'm Dr. Lisa L. Campbell, the Growth Motivator. We'll see you real soon.